Welcome to episode number 44 of the Castbar. The hype train still waits in the station as the release of Legion slowly creeps closer. Even if the train isn't moving, we still have to keep the fire going, fueling our engine with a special test segment and a closer look at mini-games. Following that, we have some listener mail and a review of Twin Peaks. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome everybody to the Castbar, the World of Warcraft podcast, channeling your content with no interrupts. Today is Monday, September 14th. We ran into some issues yesterday. We had some family plans and stuff going on, so we weren't able to really make it in for a show yesterday, but we're bringing it to you today, and we are sorry for the delay. I am your host, Michael Schwan, and with me, as I say normally, hopefully always, Evan.
Yeah, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. And Florian.
Evening.
And how are you guys doing? What are you guys up to?
Well, just a losing streak in Heroes of the Storm, unfortunately. I hate having to talk about a losing streak, but I've been on Cloud 9 for probably the past 2 weeks. I think it's been a little bit too good to be true, and it's what we call ELO hell, that hidden matchmaking number that they used to match you with people of your skill level got a little bit too high, and now I'm suffering the consequences, as it were.
Well, you did you did your 20 placement matches, right? And then at the end of that, you had lost like 18 of them.
No, I placed into 21, I think, got all the way up to 19 or 18, and now I'm going 20, 21, 22, 23. I'm at 24 now. It just sucks that it's like slipping out of you. So I'm hovering around the 50th percentile, which makes me feel thoroughly average, but I know it'll bounce back.
Well, that's what happens when you suck.
Ouch.
Yeah. What about you, Florian? You're still enjoying your vacation, right?
Oh yeah, definitely still taking some vacation time to relax. Not really playing much of anything right now, either Heroes or WoW.
Just chilling like a villain?
Pretty much.
Because that's what we all truly want to do, right? Is just kick back, relax, do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. 2 days a week I get to do some of that.
If you're lucky. All right.
Yeah, so enjoy it while it lasts, man.
Oh man, so incidentally, I spoke last week about how I was learning a new audio program, and that program is Adobe's new audio editing recording software called Adobe Audition. And it is really fantastic. The stuff that you can do with this is simply amazing and gorgeous and wonderful. But I have to play my music through a different thing, and on my other thing, I have all of the bumpers named as like intro, news, etc. And here they are instead named what the original names of the songs are. So let's hope this one's the news. Welcome to the news, everybody. There's not much. There's a little bit tidbits here and there. I mean, we could throw just some completely worthless news at you if you wanted, but we don't want to. So instead, the only thing that we have is recently, again from Gamescom, and this one came out much later than in terms of the information bracket. It came out much later than all the other interviews that we've spoken about in the past, and it's from Game Reactor. I don't know who they were speaking to. I don't see the name of which dev or anything that they are working with. But they asked them several questions. There's a lot of information here, but most of it is really irrelevant. Most of it's a bunch of him and ha and pancakey, flippy flop, just like, well, maybe, kinda, I can't really say anything type interview. So we will instead we grabbed a couple of points, and we'll just go over those. So the very first one is that World of Warcraft Legion has been in development for over a year. Obviously, I mean, most games take a couple of years at minimum to develop, but this means good things for us, right? Because we want it sooner, but at the same time, if they wanted to do a yearly cycle for expansions, then this needs to already be almost done, right?
Yeah, I mean, yearly cycle for expansions doesn't necessarily mean that expansions only take a year to develop. Like we are going to say after this point, they're already in development for the next expansion. I think having a lot of them in development at the same time will allow them to have more regular expansion. So if we're looking for a shorter expansion turnover, I think the more encouraging part of the news is the fact the next expansion after Legion is already in development now.
It kind of makes you wonder how many people are actually working on it already. I mean, let's say the next expansion is, World of Warcraft Purple, and if the next expansion is World of Warcraft Purple, how many people do they currently have working on Purple? It couldn't be too many, because then you're not focusing hard enough on the content. Well, and that's one of the things that they did talk about is trying to balance their team in a way that they're delivering quality products but at a quick enough pace. And this has always been their issue with Warcraft. Even after 10 years, it doesn't seem like they've really hit that happy medium, and maybe that's why they added people, right? Just so that they have enough people to disperse over everything so that they can work on multiple projects.
Yeah, I think that if Legion is almost done, they don't necessarily have to have everybody working on it. In fact, it wouldn't be necessarily more productive if they did. I'm thinking that if my name's Joe and my job is to put all the doodads on the Nimrods, and all the Nimrods have the doodads for this expansion coming up, so they have me working on Purple, the next expansion after that. It's me, going over to make sure all the Nimrods have just as much doodads as I wanted them to. That's not going to help Legion get released faster,
Well, it makes me, because Blizzard has always been not the country, the company that has always put a real big emphasis on the importance of, how good everything looks. The finishing polish has always been really important for Blizzard. It's really important for them to make sure that they have everything just up to their very high standards. So it makes me wonder if, let's say Legion is almost done, all the zones are designed, all of that stuff is done and created and blah, 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 blah. How many people do they have to have that are still working on those finishing touches, that are, working on fixing out bugs and, this, terrain here doesn't blend quite properly? I think they get to cut, once the ultimate number of things is created, I think they get to cut down a lot. Because then the main creators, main pro, you pay the head programmer and the main programmer, you pay them a lot of money to program the game, and then once the game is programmed, they go program the next patch or the next expansion, and then you pay, programming intern number 297 significantly less, if anything, to go through and fix bugs and go through bug reports.
Yeah, I think that's a really good analogy for what is probably closer to the truth. I think a lot of the jobs, you can probably go through each kind of part of the development process and say which people do you think have had their jobs done for a long time. But it's hard to go past speculation, because even jobs like, say, the people who write the quest text for all the NPCs, a lot of those are going to be storyline people. They're going to have good writers and the intern writers, and I'm thinking the intern writers are doing the dialogue for the, get 6 apples from the apple tree, the big guys are working on the dialogue when you're rescuing Thrall and going after Illidan. Those guys are probably already working on the next expansion or doing conceptual stuff, but there are probably still quests that don't have their text written yet, and that's what the interns are probably working on there.
And that's when we get the just really bad dialogue that doesn't make sense, or the typos.
There's some that are really funny. It's like somebody let him off the leash, kinda. And this guy is going to you know, make a storyline about an undead ghost is trying to resurrect himself, and it's all silly. I think that was actually a South Shore quest. It was pretty cool, way back in the day.
So
There's some kind of off leash quest lines and stuff with silly dialogue. Where you're thinking, well, who would they let do this? Everybody's seen those.
Well, I think a lot of that comes down to Blizzard wanting to be like a little more, as bad as like a little bit more hip. They always do a lot of the pop culture references and things like that. So I think a lot of it comes down to that, of them just trying to be a little bit closer on their demographic. And we enjoy jokes and we enjoy silly things here and there, so I think that's a lot of what they go for with some of those sillier quests. The immediately one that pops to mind was in Cataclysm. You're talking to the gnome who's in like where is he at, like Stone Talon Peaks or something like that, and it's the quest of I punched Deathwing, and then like you get this giant fist and you punch Deathwing and he goes flying across the sky, and then you can like pick up like a male blood elf as your concubine and go driving across the fields on a bicycle, and then like you get attacked and just crazy stuff like that. I think that's a lot of just Blizzard being able to have fun with whatever they want, and then also trying to create, if everything was as serious as the story of Warcraft and Azeroth was, it would be a very tiring game on your emotional state. So the cartoony graphics, the silly bits here and there, I think a lot of that is just to alleviate how dark the story actually is.
Do you think that was the original design intent behind the Warcraft RTS series? Because I think that the Warcraft art style, the World of Warcraft art style, comes from the original Warcraft series.
Well,
do you think they were always trying to put a prettier painted face on a kind of more somber storyline?
I think a lot of things do that, besides like straight up games that want to be taken seriously in that manner. Have either of you played Warcraft 3 / expansion Frozen Throne, Florian, Evan?
Right. I have. I can't speak for Evan.
Yep, I did that also. That was back in the day.
So I mean, since the beginning of World of Warcraft, all of it, well, maybe not so much anymore, but it was heavily based off of the RTS. So I mean, a lot of the inspiration and the art style definitely would come from that, but I don't think it's necessarily their initial purpose. I think it just does help it along now. And now at this point, I mean, it's just the limitations of the engine. They're very stylized, and it's very recognizable graphics when you look at World of Warcraft. I mean, some of the new, I don't know why necessarily, but I keep on hearing them called like Korean MMOs, and I don't know if they're all Korean. People reference all these
right
these MMOs that are just like pretty humanoids. They reference them as like Korean MMOs.
Dragon Nest and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's tons of them.
In some respect too.
Well, and like even things like Rift and Terra, and there was like one other one. Like I've heard people just classify all of those into Korean MMOs. Dragon's Dogma Online. I don't actually know if that's Korean or not, but people have told me it's a Korean MMO, and I think that's a weird way of defining a genre within a genre. Anyway, there's several of those that I could not tell you the difference of what I was looking at, and like the difference between like Rift, Terra, Final Fantasy 14. There's another one that came to mind that I can't think of right now. They all look really similar in that they have this very lifelike humanoid design, and they have these very beautifully done graphics, but they kind of blend together if you were to put them next to one another. And obviously some are better than others, some are newer than others, some had more money than others. But Warcraft, nothing else looks like Warcraft. Not even close. And I think while it does do what I was previously speaking about alleviating some of the dark undertones of Azeroth in the story, I think now that's just what Warcraft is. I think even if we do ever get, and we can talk about this at another time, a World of Warcraft 2 or whatever, World of Warcraft or Realm Reborn, I think it'll still be, it won't be the same engine. It'll be, fully, nice, pretty, updated graphics and stuff, but it'll still be styled as World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3 is. That kind of cartoony, oversized, blocky,
Warcraft
not as blocky
look anymore since the character model updates.
I'm sorry?
And with every expansion and the recent character model updates too, which I think were excellent and pretty widely received as a good improvement in all cases. It's just a it freshens up the same artistic style, but makes it more relevant. And every time they develop a new expansion, we saw it in this expansion. We're seeing it. I'm sure as I don't think any art has been leaked from Legion yet, really. I mean, every time they release the new monsters, the new beasts, the new terrain from the new expansion, it is scaled up. It isn't that same old rock tone that we see plastered all over vanilla and TBC. We talk about it and we see it a lot in Mist Pandaria especially, but even as early as Cataclysm, like big changes to the art style that really keep it relevant, such that if you don't look at the old vanilla content, you just look at the new character models with the new armor models in Draenor. I mean, this looks like a pretty, good game as far as the graphics capabilities. It is stylistically kind of cartoony, but it's polished. Just like Elder Scrolls Online is, just like Guild Wars 2, I think is.
Right. It's just, what I was saying is it's just such a heavily different style, whereas a lot of the other ones you can find some pretty striking similarities between some of the other MMOs that we have compared to one another.
Yeah, I think the World of Warcraft style, it's in the same engine as Warcraft 3. Is that what you're talking about as far as engine limitations? So that's why it's so easy to do it kind of in the same style. I think they tried their best to maintain the same style too. I think originally going for an MMO, they wanted that look where you kind of rolled your mouse wheel in on your Warcraft 3 RTS game in the adventure mode, and you see all the terrain and the fixed perspective still, but you see the models kind of more upright rather than top down, and you're like, this is a pretty cool game. And then they really pumped out all the graphics on it, really updated the models, and then now you're able to walk around in that Warcraft 3 environment. So that's where the style is definitely coming from. But then again, StarCraft 3, their other really big title, Diablo, their other really big title, they have a kind of cartoony art style too. Those aren't exactly photorealistic. It's not like Call of Duty or any of the other FPS games.
Well, I mean, even the best looking RTS games, to think of some like Supreme Commander, even though it's pretty spaceshipy, man, there's not many RTS games that have come out recently. Company Heroes, I mean, even the ones that are trying to look as realistic as possible because of the view that you're in, because you're in that, top down 45-degree angle command and army view, everything looks significantly different for those systems because when you're in an RTS, because even comparing like the Total War games where you can really get up close and personal, because you're so disconnected from what's happening on the battlefield, I don't really feel like it has that same emotional effect.
So you're talking about an emotional effect in an MMO, or that's devoid of all RTS in general?
Just in a game in general. I mean, Diablo, the same thing. I mean, everything's pretty small. Even if you zoom in, you're still pretty, you're kind of like, godlike, omniscient like, of where, yes, I control this character, but I'm not, it doesn't necessarily feel like you're that character the same way that it does when you're in an MMO. I mean, games like Diablo, I mean, and even with as dark as Diablo is grammar, like, in like Act 5 of Diablo, you're like walking through the streets and Malthael, the god of death, is like turning soldiers into horrible monsters in front of you. But it's not illustrated to you in such a way of like, this is, this horrible thing that's happening before my eyes. It's just small and just really like the emotional tone of it is really taken down a notch, because with Diablo, it's all about, run as fast as you can, kill as much as you can, pick up all the shiny things.
So you think that's just limitation of the perspective, not even the art style? That could be the same third-person fixed perspective on a really sweet photorealistic game, almost like the game The Last of Us, that kind of more RPG-y first-person shooters.
I think if you turned Sanctuary, the world of Diablo, and put me into a perspective of where I was playing like a Elder Scrolls game, I think those games would be terrifying. Because it would be
almost like Dark Souls.
Yeah, it'd be much more up close in your face. You really, the immersion isn't there with games like Diablo or StarCraft because of your perspective, because of the disconnection. Whereas once you are put down on the ground, even like, I mean, Warcraft, you can still be zoomed pretty far out, but you feel like you are on the ground because you are attached to this little stump with legs that runs around through the planet. Whereas it doesn't feel like you're attached to your character in Diablo. I mean, you can move the camera wherever you want. You can, it doesn't quite go the same way because disconnect is still the best word that I can think of off the top of my head because it doesn't feel like you're really ingrained into that. Whereas if you threw me down into the world of Diablo, Sanctuary is a terrifying place. It is horrifying, but it never really comes across that way because of the way it's delivered to you. Like, Diablo's graphics aren't bad. I mean, if you zoom in on the models and, you can look them up and stuff and grab the models out. I mean, they're not, like insane MMO because they don't need to be because you're far away. But if you stuck me down in there and like ran me through with my monk and I'm like fighting through this big, horrible, fat demon thing that explodes tentacles all over the place, it's going to be much more horrifying, and the gore and everything is just going to be that much more intense because I now feel like I'm my character instead of looking like I'm watching over my character and just telling my character what to do.
All right, so thinking about that in the same way, I will agree that StarCraft 2 is the same kind of thing where you can have really dark themes and these like alien races that parasitize and completely infect humans and turn them into like giant alien monsters would be something that would pants-soilingly frightening if you were playing a game like Call of Duty and you had your your companion soldiers all with you and they started morphing into horrible, hideous monsters.
Yeah, and I mean,
that'd be disconcerting to say the least.
Yeah, but if you had 50, what's the basic Terran unit called?
Marines.
Yeah, if you're playing a game of StarCraft and 50 Marines get turned into ooey gooey Zerg monsters, you're not like, oh god, that sucks so bad. You're just like, oh man, I just built all those guys. I got to build 50 more now.
Yeah,
you know how much crystal that cost?
Your main character and your hero guy and turn tail and run as fast as you can for some kind of safety. You're not splitting out of there. Yeah, I understand. It's funny.
Yeah, I mean, if Raynor's there with them and all of his guys get turned into goo, you're just like, get out of there, Raynor. If you die, I lose the mission. And that's as far as it goes.
Pretty much. So, do you think Blizzard likes doing this kind of these perspectives and this art style that kind of take the edge off of what's an otherwise really dark storyline, so it allows them to market a really dark theme to a wider audience than, say, Dark Souls gets to?
Yes. Because they need to have as wide of a demographic as possible so they can get as many people in the game as possible. And it's not a matter of numbers. It's just like that's what you want as an MMO. You want people playing your game, so you want your game to be as accessible as possible. And World of Warcraft is kind of like, I don't want to call it a kids MMO. It's not like, Toontown or anything like that. But it's supposed to be a more like worldwide friendly MMO. I mean, monsters don't blow open in a bunch of blood or anything like that. I mean, even our cutscenes, even the really what you might consider like gory cutscenes aren't gory at all. I mean, it's just like, oh, there's some people fighting.
Have you ever done the Horde quest in Hillsbrad Foothills since Cataclysm where you have to harvest spider eggs that are growing on grizzly bears?
Those poor grizzly bears.
It's pretty gory. That's kind of I think it's an optional quest because I'm sure a lot of people just noped out of that one. I do want Florian's opinion on something real quick though. Do you think that can you think of a really kind of dark or macabre, heavy lore plot that the mother of a teenage kid who wants to play World of Warcraft would be really surprised to hear exists? Like, are these storylines with Cthulhu and the kind of the old gods, are they disturbing enough to warrant a different rating if you really think about it?
And I want to think like 12-year-old boy here or girl, like 12 years old.
I can't think like a 12-year-old anymore. Unfortunately, I'm far past that
level. We are all 12-year-old boys at heart. I will tell you a fart joke and you will laugh.
Maybe, but that's beside the point because farts are inherently funny. Really, I don't think there's anything in WoW that's too extreme, although there are cases where things have come close and things have gotten pretty dark, but I think they toe a careful line. I know they've been very carefully trying not to get too high of a rating. For example, when we talked about Karazhan in our review, we discussed the crypts under Karazhan, which were originally supposed to be an instance, but were axed because it was too dark and too terrifying, and they didn't want to end up raising World of Warcraft's rating too high and basically keeping people out of their customer base. So they definitely put forth some effort to kind of keep things toned down.
And remember, the video game franchise is always behind the rest of the world. We're still not taken very seriously in regards to the public eye, regardless of how much money we throw up in the world or anything like that. So compare it to movies. Like, if you just like think of movies and think of for instance, last night I watched The Avengers. Now, that entire movie has like thoughts of like mind control and horrible badness and, you know, like genocide, and the tones that are set in that movie to a person who sees them are terrible. But because they shed it in such a light of where it's more, I mean, for lack of a better term, comic book-esque, it's a lower rating, it's more accepted by the public, it's a world-renowned movie, but they could have made that movie incredibly dark because of just how evil and horrible of things that were happening. And I think that same precedent is slowly trying to be translated into games, and people are realizing it because we're getting more defined restrictions and limitations and what's the word I'm looking for? Attributations of what is okay and what's not, as the world slowly accepts video games on a higher level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the darker themes that we come across is all the way back from Warcraft Frozen Throne, or the original Warcraft 3 game, where Arthas goes into Stratholme and starts killing innocents who might be infected with the plague that's going to kill them and turn them into monsters. That was the heavy kind of moral dilemma of that storyline, and that's something that still kind of is a standard today for how dark things get in WoW. That's not particularly inappropriate. I wouldn't mind if my 13-year-old was playing a game like this and there were themes of moral ambiguity. Plus, it isn't really all that gory when he's going around just smashing people with a big hammer, that animation they would use to attack anything in the game.
Yeah. And there, you know, again, it's that disconnected view. You're more worried about, you know, objective. You're more worried about it's not about, I mean, some people, they did get the moral decision, but especially in RTSs and even that mission, I remember it a lot. Like, the thing that stuck with me is not the decision that Arthas made about, I'm going to slaughter this town. The thing that I remember is like, man, that really sucks that his friends left him, because that's a more relatable thing of like, I have friends. I've never had to been faced with the decision of killing, you know, an entire town. Arthas chose it, not me. So whatever. I just, you know, and now it's like, well, now what's the mission? Well, kill more of these zombies than Mal'Ganis. I got it. You know, so it still feels that level of disconnection that I was talking about earlier.
So I think that's as deep as I want a storyline to be taken while I'm playing a fun game. Honestly, it doesn't distract. I really like playing BioShock. That was pretty cool as far as the moral choices you'd kind of be set with and the kind of themes you'd have to kind of grapple with as you went through the game. That was a horrifying game at some point, though. As far as the cinematography, it's really made to alarm and scare you, and it's filled with gore and everything. So it's a lot different audience than World of Warcraft, but I like that difference plays out in the actual differences between the games. World of Warcraft, super wide audience, widespread appeal. I think it's relaxing. But aren't we way off topic by now?
Yep, we're just gonna abandon the rest of this interview because there's nothing else that's really important in here. I'm just gonna yeah. I wanted to make a bumper for this. I did not have time because of, well, family stuff and time constraints and work and all that stuff. But we're going to do probably a couple weeks of this segment, and if we can get feedback on it, that would be wonderful. If not, then we'll just see how we feel about it. As we talked about in the past, we are short on news, so we need something to fill that up. We technically just filled it up with a big pile of talk about gaming in general. Moving along from that, though, the Reddit post of the week. So what I intend to do is I intend to pick one of the top posts off of the WoW subreddit. Not the top post, because normally that's just a funny picture or something like that. But if I can find a relevant post in the top post of the week, then I'm going to throw it up on here and we can talk about it, and there will be happy days. This week, and I'm it kind of makes me sad that we didn't manage to do the show yesterday when I had this. The top post of the week is that as of yesterday, September 13th, 10 years ago, or a single decade, it was the anniversary, I guess, of the Corrupted Blood incident. So, if you aren't aware, back in Vanilla, Zul'Gurub used to be a raid before it's a 5-man dungeon. That happened in Cataclysm. The boss Hakar had a debuff that it would put on you, and all it did was just tick for a little bit of damage. It was just a debuff. And if you were within a certain range of other characters, it would jump to them, and the stacks could slowly increase, and then it would eventually kill you if you didn't, get away from each other. But a bug caused this debuff to go onto pets and minions, and it didn't drop off of them. So when they left the dungeon, the disease stayed onto the pets and minions, and then when they went back to Stormwind, it was like, oh, there's a little level 2 guy over there, jump, and then the level 2 guy would die and it would jump to other people, and then it literally created a widespread epidemic in Warcraft. Evan,
I think this is hysterical. Yeah, it reminds me of the living bomb trick. Do you guys remember that from back in Vanilla, or references to it at least? Baron Geddon. It was Baron Geddon in Molten Core. The big flame elemental guy would cast the living bomb on you. It's kind of a famous thing. The fire mages can now do this bomb spell. You had to run away and you would explode for a ton of damage. You had to be isolated or you'd kill everybody near you, and then you'd fly up into the air. It could be targeted onto your succubus or whatever. People would unsummon their succubus and then summon it again in the auction house and Ironforge and kill everybody around.
Yeah. Rude. Were you playing during this epidemic, Evan?
Yeah, I remember fighting Hakar with my guild when Zul'Gurub was the relevant instance, but I don't remember this bug.
Well, it didn't last for too long. It only lasted it lasted I think a week maximum. I don't remember the exact time. It wasn't real long though. I mean, because it essentially high-level players could live through it because it didn't take for that much damage, but it would jump to low-level players, and they would just die. Just, oh, well, you're dead. And then, the high-level players like, oh, that was weird, and run through the town again, and then you just see corpses falling all over the place.
That's really awesome. I really think this is funny, and I'd be really sad if people got really bent out of shape about the whole thing. I wouldn't be able to do anything except laugh, and just because of how crazy and stupid the situation is. Somebody from the opposite faction camping me, no, that makes me mad. Random bug killing me every time I walk into Stormwind, maybe a little inconvenient, but if it's happening to everybody else, it's kind of like during the Warlords launch week when people were getting stuck midair on their griffins trying to fly into their garrisons.
Well, one of the most interesting things about this is because of how astounding it was, and it literally worked very similar to how a real world disease would. Like, let's say that the person leaving the instance is like patient 0, and then they don't know that they're infected because, well, technically their pet's infected. They go back to town, they cough on some guy, that guy gets infected, then they infect 5 others, and then it just multiplies out of control. There were scientific labs that went to Blizzard and asked them for all of their data on this because of how similar it was to a real plague outbreak, that they wanted to study it for data of how to fight plagues.
This is kind of similar to the actual plague event that happened. I don't think we've ever talked about this. Back when you could turn into a zombie and you could infect other people and turn them into zombies. I don't remember what era this was. I think it might have been a Halloween event during original vanilla. Do you guys recall this at all?
I don't. Do you, Florian?
I've heard about it. I was not there at the time, though.
All right, we can carry on about this. Maybe talk about that another time.
Okay. So, on yesterday's date, everybody died. So,
do you have that children doing a sad sound?
This is the best I got.
Nobody likes dying, especially when it's everybody on the planet.
You know why?
You guys suck.
That's why.
Yeah, it didn't have enough health points. Oh, well.
Yeah, it's all your fault.
Yeah, I really like how only the lobies of dying. It was just an inconvenience to the high-level characters.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, man, I can't Hearthstone. I keep on taking damage or whatever, and then it's like, that's annoying. I guess I'll just log out, whatever, and then some lobby runs by. Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, like, Butt Jammer Jenkins is... he can't get to the mailbox.
Butt Jammer Jenkins. Is this one of your characters?
No, it's just all the new characters. When you make a new character, you automatically have a title, and it's usually Jenkins because it's first in alphabetical order. So, yeah, Butt Jammer. I'll make a rogue named Butt Jammer. Who cares?
Giggity? Yeah, definitely giggity. Moving, yeah. Welcome to A Closer Look, everybody. This week, we are going to be talking about mini-games in the world of Warcraft. There are more than you think and less than you probably want. So, the biggest thing you probably think of about mini-games is the Dark Moon Fair. So, let's talk about the mini-games at the Dark Moon Fair. Now, if I miss some, I am relatively sorry, on a very low amount. So the newest one is the Dark Moon Races. Have either of you tried these yet?
No.
Not yet.
No.
Are you going to?
Too much hype. Maybe eventually.
Do you guys spend much time at the Dark Moon Fair?
No, historically, I don't have all that much that I'm going after in there. What about you, Florian?
Yeah, same here. There's nothing in the Dark Moon Fair that really interests me.
So
at least nothing to go after.
The rewards are too low?
Yeah, I mean, they're just tailored to more the toys and things like that. And
they're niche rewards. Niche rewards. They're for a certain niche, and I guess we're not that niche.
I can say that I'm not either. I've gotten a couple things, but yeah, not exactly a whole lot here. I have not done the Dark Moon Races, but I do know that you essentially borrow a mount and you race around the island, and you want to get first, and then if you do that, you can continue on to other races, and it just creates like this seasonal thing, and you can win, like, I don't even know what you can win. But essentially, it's just mount racing. Following that, there's ring toss, in which you just pick your... It's no different than like placing an AoE, and you just try to throw the ring onto a turtle that has a pole on its back. Like, the thing with the Dark Moon Fair is, like, so my home, the state I live in, Alaska, just had its state fair, and going to the state fair, you start, like, as a kid, it's one thing. You're just like, yeah, state fair, God, I need cotton candy, and I need to go on everything. But when you get older, you're like, man, all these games are really lame. And I kind of feel that same way about the Dark Moon Fair. I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to throw a ring onto a turtle. Woot.
Yeah, it's almost like, is this even worth the bag space that the token I win uses up?
Why am I here again?
I did the, I can't remember. I went and did all the things. I wanted to get 10 tokens or something like that. I can't remember why. Maybe I got a bug in my butt and wanted to get the mount all of a sudden. So I said, I'm going to do the Dark Moon Fair every week.
Did you say
got the maximum amount
you're
of tickets.
just all about the butt right now? You had a bug in your butt?
No, I mean, sometimes you grow a wild hair. I use euphemisms for everything. You get it in your head all of a sudden that you want the Dark Moon tuxedo for some reason, and then so you said I can earn up to 22 tickets a day doing all the dailies. and that includes doing all little games. So for 1 or 2 days, I did that, and so I did all the games. I did the Whack-A-Knoll, which I thought was really fun. I had to do the steam tonk thing until I won and until I got the whole win. So it took me like 3 tries. I couldn't figure out the point of the game or anything.
The
I thought
controls
I
on
was trying to
that
kill the
one are
other
really
tonks.
bad too.
Yeah, and
It
then
drives
I did the
real
game where
awkward.
you get shot out of the cannon. That was pretty tough, but I got that eventually because I think you have to get 3 bullseyes. I can't remember what I was doing this for. At any rate, I think they're cool. The target practice one, you're using this like we were talking about limited game mechanic engine, and then doing fun little mini games. It reminds me of Zelda. The different Zelda games always had mini games.
So, Florian, even if the rewards for the Dark Moon Fair are minimal to a point of which you don't feel like grinding them, did you get any enjoyment out of the mini game? Wow, yeah.
Sort of, yes and no. I mean, like, they're slightly amusing games, and I quite like the little Tonk game, but they just don't have any. Well, I guess they're mini games, so they don't need any staying power. But it's just a thing you play with, and you get bored of it pretty quick. It's not. There's no real depth or complexity, so it's just something to try a few times, and you're like, okay, I've done this. This is a thing that's in my life now, and then you just go on your own way.
I think the depth of it comes when you're trying to earn those high-dollar rewards that require doing these games over and over again. You're saying, how fast can I do my Dark Moon Fair rotation? Because I have to do it every day for a whole week, once a month kind of thing. And I think people who are really good at the ring toss are probably really proud of their ability to ring toss. Because, damn, they worked hard for that.
A different game. The ring toss, it's kind of impossible to lose.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, still, if you.
I understand what you meant, though. Well, and let's not forget the other one. The one probably my favorite is the one that they added very at the beginning of Warlords of Draenor. It's the wings of what's the Firebird's name from Firelands? I don't remember. Excelsior, Avon's Razor. Words, things that
you mean Alice Resort?
Alice Resort.
How do you pronounce it?
That one, yeah. The one where they throw wings on your back and you jump up in the air and you got to go around the island flying through the fire rings. And if you get through the rings, then it resets the duration on your fire rings, and the more you get, the better you do. That game was fun. I thought that one was done really well, and the reward for it was pretty awesome, even though you only have to do it once to get the reward, which is, your own set of fire wings, except they don't let you fly. I thought that game was really well done, and it was designed well, and it felt fluid, and it was fun. Whereas, like, the ring toss is just, I mean, unless you are really bad at placing AoE things on the ground, that game is woo. The man cannon is pretty simple. You just kind of have to count to 3 and then remove your parachute, and then you should land into the bullseye. So, I mean, I think they're starting to get somewhere with these, especially when I look at things like the wings of Alice Resort. But I kind of feel like they had a little bit more substance to them. And the reason that I initially pitched this as a closer look is I was I've been on a Final Fantasy binge lately. Excuse me. And I remember in Final Fantasy VII, they have the Gold Saucer, which is just essentially an arcade that's full of arcade games. And I remember, and still can, waste way too much time in that one building. And I immediately went, man, I kind of wish there was something of an equivalent in Warcraft. But the mini games are not on the same level. And maybe that's just a difference between the games or the engines or whatever. But in terms of when they are talking about trying to, keep people in the game, keep people playing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, something like a really gripping, returnable mini game sounds awesome.
That could be interesting.
Almost
one
like
thing I'd
Battlefield.
kind of hoped when Garrisons first became a thing was that we would have almost an RTS sort of mini game that we could play. Basically, play Warcraft in Warcraft. but unfortunately that didn't come to fruition. But I'm still hoping they decide to go back on it sometime because, we already know this is in a modified version of the Warcraft 3 engine. So theoretically, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to play an RTS in WoW. So I'm still hoping that eventually becomes a thing.
I would be so down for that. You would have my subscription for years if it was just like, all right, well, go to, the command hub in, Stranglethorn Vale and talk to, Commander Western or whatever. I can't say Admiral Taylor. He's dead. And he'll, essentially just set you up with a Warcraft 3 match in Warcraft. And, yeah, I'd play it. I'd play it a lot, all the time.
Yep, let's do it. Cut print. Good idea.
Yep, make it happen. A couple other mini games though. There is the Plants vs Zombies mini game that takes place in Arathi Highlands, and I think one of the biggest problems, actually, now that I'm mentioning this, is the rewards for the mini games, because like the Firebird game is really fun. Florian, I didn't really spend much time on the Tonk mini game, but you said you enjoyed it a lot. Plants vs Zombies, of course, is a fun game, but for the most part, the main rewards that are attached to these games are like a one and done. Like you get through 50 Firebird rings and boom, you get the Fire Wings. And there's nothing else to get after that besides the Dark Moon Fair tickets to get the, a bajillion ticket, mount, of a dancing bear. And with Plants vs. Zombies, it's, well, you play through the series, like once and then boom, you have the Singing Sunflower done. There's no reason to do it anymore besides like personal satisfaction. But why would I do that if it doesn't give me anything? And the satisfaction isn't nearly as much as like just going and playing Plants vs. Zombies.
Right. I think you did a little bit, then you got your little singing sunflower pet, and then that was pretty much the payoff. I can't imagine them having this kind of consistent, persistent mini game. They did do this with the battle pets, though. This is a mini game within the game that you can enjoy in all the outdoor zones and inside the dungeons and trade on the auction house. It's really integrated into all the other kind of game systems. The Plants vs. Zombies, I think, was just a little cute illusion, not really something that would be able to hold up on its own at all.
I think if they gave some actual value to it past the Singing Sunflower, I think you could really get a little bit farther on there. I mean, again, I am not a programmer, but they already have the technology in the game to do things with Plants vs. Zombies. And, sorry, it wouldn't be too difficult to essentially just, what's the word I need? Just tune the numbers on the plants that are being put down. Because I have done that. I have done a bit of programming and tweaking and stuff like that for RTSs. I did a lot of a lot of learning programming and map triggers and stuff like that for Warcraft 3 as well as Command and Conquer Red Alert 2. And so I know that once the programming is in place for those numbers, it is not difficult to change those numbers. So I think that, they were talking about how the selfie camera was like two dudes designed it on a weekend, whereas this technology has already been designed, so a dude in his spare time at work could easily create and develop things to keep Plants vs. Zombies going.
Yeah, and indeed, the Plants vs. Zombies was its own game that you could buy for $10, and it had 4 different levels, 10 stages each, and then they modified it for Android and iPhone as a kind of mini transaction game that sucked. And I think that's all Plants and Zombies kind of had in it as a game concept. So honestly, I don't see the value of taking this kind of little ripoff that's more of a tip of the hat than a breach in game programmer, relations. It's not like saying, "Oh, that's a really good idea for a game. We're going to do that." And it's like saying Battle Pets is a ripoff of Pokemon. They really said, "This is our own game. We're gonna do this really sweet in-game Pokemon thing. It's going to be awesome." They're not going to say that about Plants vs. Zombies because it was something that was more of a pop culture reference than a really cool game system based on a really cool, successful game. I don't think Plants and Zombies was all that successful past the gimmick.
But I want more to do.
Oh, pick up Steam then. There are lots of games for $10 you can buy just as good as Plants vs. Zombies.
I am all over Steam. I say I want more reasons to play Warcraft. Go ahead.
Did you want to frame that argument into the Battle Pets system? Did you play Pokemon as a kid?
Yes.
Florian, how about you?
I played a ton of Pokemon.
Is
But
Battle Pets anywhere near as satisfying as Pokemon was to play?
no, not at all. I think because I'm going to be totally real here. I play Warcraft to play Warcraft. If I want to play Pokemon, I just go play Pokemon. So I really don't see the point of putting a Pokemon minigame in Warcraft. I know some
Mhm.
people are super into it and they're really excited about battle pets, and that's great for them. But I just don't see the appeal. It's an inferior version of something that you can get better elsewhere.
I
That's
wouldn't
how
necessarily
I
say
feel
it's
about the Plants vs.
inferior.
Zombies. Yeah.
The reason that I think that it falls short in comparison to Pokemon is specifically for this reason of that past the gameplay, it doesn't have anything. So, like, Pokemon, the whole basis around Pokemon is the Pokemon. You proceed through the story, you play against other people that have Pokemon, and, you know, the whole quest is about Pokemon. There's always a big bad Pokemon. There's always the legendary ones. There's the big bad gym leaders, etc. Whereas in Warcraft, it's just kind of like Warcraft splashing Pokemon. There just happens to be Pokemon here, but it's not really like there isn't a quest line that goes along with the Pokemon. The only quest line that exists is going from one battle trainer to another. But in Pokemon, there's Pokemon trainers everywhere. I mean, you walk down the street and everyone like, you know, what? And then they walk over to you and they're like, I'm gonna duel you because I said so.
Oh wow, yeah.
But you don't have that in Warcraft. There is one battle trainer per zone. And Warcraft zones are real big, and there is nothing that drives you to do Pokemon besides the fact that they're Pokemon. You know, it's not like you go to, you know, I can't even remember her name, the little chick that's sitting on the hill in Stormwind that essentially gives you your first Pokemon and says, you know, here's this, you know, you should venture out to meet Professor, you know, Peabody that's over in, you know, Sentinel Hill down in Westfall, and on the way there you get attacked by Pokemon, and then, you know, you're like, oh, there's, you know, whatever the detective's name is when you first go into Westfall, and he's like, what, you have Pokemon? I want to fight your Pokemon. Nope, there is nothing besides just going from one battle trainer to another and finding them. And honestly, the whole thing in Pokemon of gotta catch them all, there's actually very few people that care about that. Most people are like, I have like 10 that I like. I want to get those 10 and I want to hold those 10 near and dear to me forever and proceed through this story with my group of 10 awesome guys. And I'm going to take down everything and I'm going to be awesome. But there isn't that in Warcraft Pokemon.
No, Warcraft Pokemon, I have no interest in the pets and I'm getting them out the wazoo here and there everywhere. Here's a pet, there's a pet, everywhere's a pet. You know, I've never summoned a quarter of the pets in my pet collection. Is that strange?
No, I think that's pretty normal. But I think that's really what the inherent problem is with battle pets, is that besides the combat of battle pets, they don't have any other support. They're just battle pets.
Mm-hmm. They're just those dang pets.
They're just around.
And which is funny because they were really plenty fun to collect as like a trading card thing before they had any other functionality. I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna ditch. I'm not gonna say that the pet battle system is anything but a good improvement that adds some kind of depth and complexity in a little mini game that's fun for people who consider it to be fun. But yeah, it's not quite Pokemon. That would be cool though if you could level up from 1 to 90 or 1 to 100. And you just flip a switch, and instead of mobs aggroing you in the wild, you have your little battle pet, and you play the game as if, just like you described, the Lieutenant Marshal at Sentinel Hill was a boss trainer, and he wanted to fight your Pokemans, and you have Pokemans coming at you from the wild, all through Elwyn Forest, and that's how you leveled up, and that stuff you just removed from the regular, you know, mage, priest, warrior.
Boom, I'm sold. I'm creating a level 1 toon right now.
Yeah, seriously.
What about you, Florian? You said that, you know, why would you play the battle pets in Warcraft? Because, well, there's, you know, Pokemon, because Pokemon is truly right now superior to battle pets. If they had implemented a system like I had described for battle pets, would you be more inclined to do them?
I would consider it, but, you know, I mean, like, how should I put this? different game companies and different games have their bread and butter. They have a particular thing that they're good at. Blizzard's really good at making RTSs and apparently also MMORPGs. And WoW's really good at being an MMORPG. It's not about monster battling, and that's not a thing that's their forte. It's how should I put it? It's like you don't go to like a Mexican restaurant and order, say, a cheeseburger. Even if it's on the menu, that's not the point because that's not what they specialize in. So it just seems
totally
weird
go
to me
Mexican places
to
and
even
order
have this
cheeseburgers.
here, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. I'm just saying that you don't control me, and I will totally order a cheeseburger at a Mexican restaurant.
Well, we're basically playing
You're lost.
Barbies with this transmog system, so I don't know. If you wanted to really play Barbies, why don't you play real-life Barbies, as I say.
Because have you ever tried to dress a real-life Barbie? It takes way too long.
And all the clothes cost money, whereas these clothes are just digital.
Exactly. I mean, Barbies are expensive. I know. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and she's like, I want that. And even the like basic Barbie that's in a tube top is like $10, and I'm like, yeah, no. Let's go buy you something else. Anyway,
Let's go buy you a college education. No, I'm joking.
well, we do have a couple other games to talk about. So, Evan, I haven't played this game. What is the Burning Crusade Nagrand game? What is that?
This is a quest that you get in Nagrand level 67 or whatever, called Bring Me the Egg. It's a goblin who must have these eggs that are in this nest in a tree, and you have to use this Jumpatron 4000, which is like a machine, like a goblin machine trampoline, and it gives you a little slow fall buff and shoots you high up in the air, and you have to cancel off the buff when it's going to put you on that nest.
So it's exactly like the man cannon in Dark Moon Fair?
Not exactly. You're going straight up as opposed to over a long distance. He's right below the tree where you have to get this egg out, and the Jumpatron thing pretty much throws you straight up. But it's really a really narrow landing, so not exactly the distance. Landing in a target, you're falling straight down. It makes it tough. And basically, I pointed this out as a mini game because it certainly broke up the natural progression
of. Is it kind of similar to the Featherfall mini game on the Timeless Island?
The Featherfall mini game in the time. Oh yeah, kind of like that. Where it shoots you straight up and then you're falling in a direction. I think so.
Okay, I love that. I wish I could have got to do that more than once a day.
I felt really like I only got 2 chests ever doing that. I'm like, there's got to be a better way.
Like if they could have made that game like longer and bigger and with like different rewards that were more difficult to get to, or that you had to like explore through clouds with little platforms on them, I could have played that game a lot.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, this is really similar. So anyway, you're questioning that grand. You're doing the Heaven Nest Warrior stuff. You're talking with all the Draenei, killing orc spirits and big rock monsters, and then you have to help this goblin get this egg out of a tree. And it was really frustrating, and it took all sorts of attempts, and you died over and over again. So your repair bill was getting racked up, and you were just as invested in the stupid egg as this goblin was. It's funny how sometimes a mini game in the middle of your questing flow can really make you obsessive, especially when it seems really simple. I think that's why those carnival games you're talking about at the State Fair make so much money. It's just getting a little ring on a bottle top. Really, how hard could it be? And before you know it, you spent $50 and you still haven't won the 50-cent stuffed animal.
Oh no, I do not spend the $50. The only other things we have are the Netherwing races and the Cloud Serpent minigame, which again are just mount races that are real kind of
I've never done any of these. Have you done any of the mount races?
You haven't done your Cloud Serpent training stuff?
Nope.
Oh, I have.
Nice.
I've done the Cloud Serpent training, and it's a thing, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, the whole you could almost call the entire raising of a Cloud Serpent a mini game, because you have to like raise him and play with him and feed him. It's kind of like having a little Geo pet or something.
Oh, right.
but it goes by real quick, and the race after you've done it to get your Cloud Serpent and to get your Cloud Serpent training, it's not engaging enough to ever really want to do again. Because essentially you just are just flying in a circle, and you just it's not too bad. I think Florian hit something really accurate there, of that with mini games there has to be either an immense level of enjoyment out of them or a decent enough reward that you're enjoying doing something that goes towards the reward. Whereas after you've gotten your mount, there's not a whole lot of reason to do the Cloud Serpent race anymore. Even though it's not a bad system. I mean, you get to fly around on your mount, and like flying through you fly through rings and they make you go faster, or is it clouds? No, maybe it's both. I don't remember. There's something to do with clouds and there's something to do with rings. I think it's clouds make you faster, and you need to get more rings than the other racers. So clouds will make you faster, and so you can fly farther and stuff like that. And then you are trying to fly through more rings than the other racer.
Well, that makes sense.
And it was a fun thing. It's just after I got my Cloud Serpent, I was like, well, done with this, bye.
Do you have to do it on your other characters as well?
You used to. You no longer have to.
And Florian, did you ever do the Netherwing reputation grind and culminating in the mountain race?
I did not.
Because he's a smart man.
I'd like to get some feedback from a listener if anybody's back there in the TBC era and has done the Netherwing and the Cloud Serpent. Was the Netherwing the end of the rep grind mount races? Were those fun, more challenging, less fun than the Cloud Serpent? What were the differences between the two? Because I didn't do either. You seem like you've done the one, not the other. So, yeah, that's something I'm curious about.
Well, and then, I mean, now, though, most people, if they're going to farm the Netherwing rep, they farm the eggs, which the eggs were available for the Cloud Serpents as well, I suppose.
Right. And you can get the eggs in mass in a Timeless Isle for the Cloud Serpent rep these days. Like, that makes really, really fast. Can you buy them in the auction house even?
I don't know
just like
if
those
you can.
Catch-up mechanics to kind of open the floodgates. If you want to go all the way to the bottom side of Shadow Moon Valley, which probably just takes 15 minutes of flying and teleporting anyway, then be their guest to take out some of the obstacles. I think that's cool. I think it's a really unique looking mount that isn't seen really all that often. Not that we see too many flying mounts in general in this expansion, which is kind of sad, but there it is. Yeah, Netherwing's kind of a rare mount. If you guys are a new player to the game and haven't heard of that, yeah, go for the Netherwing mount reputation. You have a bunch of different colors you get for unlocking Exalted.
It's also a
really
requirement pretty
mount.
much if you want to get the Mountain of Mount achievements, because you get like 10 mounts from the Netherwing rep, and that's a big chunk on your way to 300.
That's the same thing in a lot of TBC. If you do the Shatari Skyguard, you get the Netherwing. Not the Netherwing, what I'm talking about now. The little sky
Manta rays.
Manta ray, yeah, the little sky rays. And it's the same thing. You get the armored ones and the unarmored ones, because back in that expansion, a mount was either a fast mount or a slow mount. And if you didn't have the fast mount training, you couldn't ride the fast mount. So you'd have to get the slow mounts, and then the fast mounts are generally armored in some way. So you have a whole lot of mounts just
because that makes them faster.
One reputation. Exactly. The armor is magic armor.
Well, that's like in Warhammer 40K, the tabletop army game. One of the armies is the orcs, and they literally have an ability that says, like, I forget what it's called. I think it's called Paint It Red or something like that. And if you paint your models red, they literally get a bonus. If you paint them red, they will move an extra inch compared to non-red units. It doesn't cost anything, like, because abilities in that game all cost points, and you have a certain number of points to build your army with. But if you paint your models red, they get to move an extra inch because red makes it go faster.
One more thing about the Burning Crusade mounts. I really like the Talbuks you get in Nagrand. If you're the Horde, you get it from the Maghar. The Alliance, you get it from the dumb Draenei in that zone. And then you get them the same way. You have to kill the ogres in the northwest and the Mideast border. And
the dumb Draenei. Hey, that's profiling.
Their name is. In their town with all their bridges. Seriously, you should roll Horde just so you don't have to interact with that town. No. But you have to kill the ogres to get the war beads, and that's how you get that. It's a really short grind, and I think the tile books look cool. And again, you get like 8 of them.
Yep, I need to do all 3 of those, but I don't want to. So, Florian, I'm going to start out with you on this one. With all these mini games, and would you like to see more mini games? And if so, what might you like to see from them?
Well, I've already discussed the obvious RTS mini game.
I approve.
Aside from that, as far as I'm concerned, more content is always good. It might not necessarily be content that appeals to me, but as long as it appeals to somebody, it's bringing more players into the game. And the more players we have, the better community we have, the better things are for everybody. So as far as I'm concerned, more mini games are always better. With that being said, I would like to see future mini games have a little more substance. Either have better rewards to go for, or have something that's more engaging, more interesting, and keeps you coming back for more, if that makes any sense. Because a mini game can do that. A game doesn't have to be complicated to be addictive. Things like Tetris are a great example of that. So they can very easily make a simple game that can be very fun, and we'll have players come back all the time to play it simply because it's entertaining. I would like to see something like that as opposed to something that's just thrown out there with next to no development.
And Evan, what would you like to see?
Yeah, basically the same thing. I like to see customizable buildings and housings. I like to be able to see customizable weapons, a mini game where maybe you get to take off your doodads and doohickeys and rearrange the same art pieces on a weapon to make a custom spear or what have you. I think it'd be a pretty cool feature.
So basically just better and more.
Yeah, just any old thing.
Well, maybe not old. I'd like to see new things. Anyway, into the mailbag. Welcome to the mailbag, everybody. So if you would like to send us questions, suggestions, and or feedback, please send us an email at thecastbar@gmail.com. You can also send us a tweet on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. Call and leave us a voicemail at 508-738-2278, or you can leave us words, feedback, and questions through our website at www.thecastbar.com. We have 2 emails in our bag today. The first one is from Vlad from the Bronze Dragonflight EU. He says, "Hi guys, at the moment I run my main and only character, an Orc Mage, on the Bronze Dragonflight EU, which is a medium population server, and was thinking about starting an alt to help fill the time until Legion. A question I have might be a topic for you on the show, is the pros and cons of high and medium populations on servers. Would I be better off just staying on a medium server I am already on, or jumping to somewhere with a higher population? The things I am trying to weigh are things like the auction house, waiting times on dungeon raids in LFR, and of course the mad dash for spawning bosses. I'd love to hear your thoughts if you have the time. Keep up the good work. Love the show." So one of the things that I would like to point out first is the auction house. Unless you are on an extremely low population server, the auction house doesn't really make a difference anymore. The biggest thing on the auction house that used to be a factor was which faction you were on and how imbalanced the server was. But the auction house now spans across the entire server for both factions, which even on a medium population server normally means that it's pretty heavily stocked with anything that you could want. And once you hit a threshold, it doesn't necessarily get more plentiful or cheaper or anything with more people. There's just a lot more crap on there, and I think that's really the extent that goes. And I'd say it kind of goes the same with Dungeons and Raids. Dungeons and Raids really, you get shoved in there with a whole bunch of different servers, don't you, right? Like when you jump into LFR, right. I normally see people from Kingdom Come and Timbuktu and
Yeah,
Cross server battlegrounds were the first thing, and back then you were and still are, I believe, are organized into battle groups, meaning when you join the battleground queue, you're basically a shared pool of 16 different servers or so. Looking for raid and looking for group, I have no idea how many servers they put together, or maybe it's just all of them in a region. Yeah,
I
Florian, do
believe
you know specifically?
those are also battle group based, if I understand correctly.
That would make sense, right?
Yeah, might as well use the connections if they're already there.
So in a battle group, they have optimized big servers and small servers so that the big servers get to help the small servers, I guess. You're not just going to put in 8 small servers and it's still a small battle group. I think all the battle groups have about the same population among them. That's at least the goal, I would imagine. But battle groups might differ one from another. I've never been like, wow, this battle group sucks, been matchmaking on one server versus another. However, yeah, my take on the whole thing is it depends on your goals. Some goals are going to be better than others. I think arenas, you have to be on a team with somebody from your server. Rated battlegrounds, you have to be on a team with somebody from your server. Mythic raids, I think you have to be on a team with somebody from your server. So
Correct.
if you were going after this high-end progression stuff, PvP or PvE, then your server is going to matter. Um, if you like just hanging out and questing, if you like doing trade skills, if you like farming mats and stuff in the wild, then maybe you want a lower population server, rare spawns, that kind of thing, so that you have less competition. If you like going after the time lost proto drake, for instance, you don't want to do that on Illidan. I'm sure there are a couple people who are out there every day.
Well, the thing on those, I don't know what you mean, Vlad, by spawning bosses, because I mean, if you're just talking about like rare spawns in Draenor or even on like Timeless Isle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference which server you're on, because one of those have a pretty, you might have a better time on a lower pop server, but if you're talking about like rare spawns, like like Pound Fist or like Evan said, the Time Lost Proto Drake or anything like that, I can tell you that completely does not matter on server size. And there's multiple reasons why. One, on every server, if someone doesn't want it, someone is inviting somebody onto that server that does want it and is willing to camp there for hours until they get it. The other thing is in almost all of these zones, there's this terrible thing now that exists called cross realms. And so, like, when I was big on my hunter, there are these exotic beasts that are essentially rare spawn beasts, like King Crush or Skull, the Lightning Wolf. But one of them is called Nagaratata, and it's that speckled leopard with the lightning blue mouth, and that spawns in Shalazar Basin in Northrend. And he has 6 spawn locations, and every time I go there, there's 5 hunters there waiting for him to spawn, because it's like, oh, this guy is from, Bronze Dragonflight, this guy is from Eridar, this guy's from Proudmoore, this guy's from Airy Peak, this one's from blah blah blah. And because they put the zones together like that to try and make them feel more populated, even though they're empty as bejesus anyway, because no one's going back to do that content unless they're there to farm something such as, Nakatatata or whatever, Nushalek or whatever that cat's name is. So for the most part now, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. The only way you'll see a very large difference is if you are going from like a low or a low-ish server to a more populated server. You'll just see more people. You might see some more stuff in the auction house, but you're already at a medium server. The difference between a medium and high pop server isn't that big of a difference unless you're going from a medium server to an overloaded server like Illidan or Stormrage.
Yeah, medium to high, not that big of a difference. Medium to the highest of the populated servers is a pretty big difference. They're just different from kind of all the rest of the 1%, I guess.
And max pop servers normally come with more problems than they do graces.
Right. Any benefit for going to one or the other, high or low, is going to be kind of diluted by Blizzard's means to thwart the cons of small servers, basically, and the cons of big servers. So there's a lot of zone sharing. A lot of the content you don't need to be on a specific server with somebody to do. If you are into Mythic raiding, and you just don't have enough teams running on your server, I don't see why a server transfer is so unreasonable, to be honest. And then you can then you're looking for a group. You're on social media. You're putting in an application probably, and you're waiting on acceptance. And they're probably going to try to play with you ahead of time anyway.
Well, he specifically
same
said
thing
for
with
an
the.
alt.
So again, go ahead.
Is that he specifically said for an alt?
Oh yeah, so just I would say try something new. The only thing you're really going to look at the only thing you're really going to see is how crowded it is in the zones when you're leveling up. When you're in the major cities, you just got to figure out if you like when things are crowded or not. It really just depends on the person.
Florian, will you please read us the next email?
I will indeed read us the next email. All right. Get an email here. It says, "Hi guys, thank you for discussing the topic of player housing and unexplored content from previous expansions. Your feedback and discussions make it come alive." Smiley face. He didn't write smiley face. He just drew a little emoticon. I'd like to clarify. You asked me about the commute and traffic. I can just about listen to a full show going into work in the morning and back home in the evening, which takes close to 2 hours in total. Whether I'd buy a Bring Me Home bundle for €20, I certainly would, no doubt about it. It's a great addition to the game, and I've bought mounts for similar prices, so why not a house? You're thinking on making it a house or apartment installment is an excellent idea and would really work. Maybe even a choice between the capital cities of your faction would be nice, and possibly 4 spots in a capital city where you can choose your apartment, for example in the Mage Quarter or in the Old Town. Another good reason to do it in the capital city is for social reasons. It enables people to go in and out of houses in a bustling city. To make it even more relevant, you can tie it also into professions: leatherworking for couches or animal rugs, tailoring for drapes and linen, blacksmithing for chandeliers, inscription for paint, etc. Keep up the great work on your shows. Cheers, Yantax.
Wouldn't you use tinkering for a chandelier?
Well, we don't have tinkering, so
engineering.
I think engineering would be better off for a chandelier than blacksmithing.
Like fixtures.
Yeah,
I think blacksmithing would be more like a structural and material. Anyway, yeah, that's a really good idea, especially tying professions into the housing aspect. I think it'd be kind of, if they're going to bring professions into it, that would have to be more of a game feature expansion, not a app store or a game store feature.
I don't know. I think they could still do it as a bot feature. I mean, until you buy, like they could add an extra like tab in the profession section for like house building and stuff like that. And maybe you can't even see that until you buy the little Bring Me Home bundle. Or maybe you can, and there's a way of them showing like, hey, look what you could make if you bought this bundle. Give us money, thank you.
Or maybe you can make all the furniture and sell it to the people who bought the house bundle, even without buying it.
Yeah, sure, maybe. I mean,
just so they could make sure that if only 2 people bought the thing, they'd still be able to put furniture in it.
And then you can take things even farther, like I was talking about, when we talked about this, having stuff for your house drop in other places. I mean, you could have like maybe like small quest lines, or you could have to go like have a chance to find like a rare pattern so that you can make the grand piano or something like that. That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, so a lot of depth and complexity there, Blizzard. A lot of furniture items that are easy to learn but hard to master, like the duvet, comforter, slip. I don't know. Trying to get a rise of Blizzard here. Let's step up to the plate. Next expansion, Pier 1, World of Warcraft Pier 1 imports.
Florian, I have a question for you. On that idea that I just said about like rare patterns, and I can't think of a game that immediately does it this way. What is your opinion on if let's say what do you say? He said leatherworking for couches, or sure, we'll go with that. We'll say leatherworking, blacksmithing. It can make a chair. We'll say blacksmithing can make a chair, because whatever. Anyway, what if you had to like make like, maybe this is a bad idea, I don't know, but so like you can make there's like a low quality chair, a medium quality chair, and a good quality chair, and you can't make the medium quality chair until you've made the low quality chair 50 times.
Seems like that'd have to have a skill point system.
It kind of makes it kind of makes sense from a logical perspective. I actually could kind of see that working, and I really wouldn't mind it too much. Or maybe I normally hate RNG, but maybe make it a slightly probability-based system where your chances of producing a higher level chair increase the more chairs you've made as you slowly become a master chair smith, something like that. Yeah. And then as you increase, you can create better and better chairs, but there's always a chance you can make a dud. Everybody has an off day.
Right. I'm looking up on Google. The correct word is cherriere.
Is it really?
That's nice.
Oh, I was like, wow, that is awesome. That is one of the best puns I have ever heard. I realized that you were just like lying to me. But I wish that was true now, because that is fantastic, and that should be what it's called, because, well, derriere, chair. I love this. Okay. I approve in all of my everything. I approve. Moving on. I think I'm going to look into getting some new bumpers. A couple of, like, the one for the review I don't really care for. We'll see what we can find. Anyway, welcome to the review, everybody. Every week we attempt to review something, and this week we are going to be reviewing a Battleground of Twin Peaks. The review will be broken into 3 sections: ambience, gameplay, and lore. Ambience, everything you see, hear, feel, etc. Gameplay is pretty self-explanatory, and lore is the story, because WoW would be nothing without the story behind it. Moving into ambience, I will go ahead and throw my hat at it. Where is Twin Peaks? It's in the not the Arathi Highlands, the Twilight Highlands.
Twilight Highlands.
Is that what they're called? The Twilight Highlands?
I believe so.
Sounds right to me.
And it's between the Griffin, the drunk dwarves, and the something.
Wildhammer.
The Wildhammer. That's it. The
and,
Griffin
some
dwarves.
kind of orcs.
Griffin dwarves, Gryffindor, Harry Potter, Illuminati. Anyway, so it depends. For me, I this had a much better, stronger impression when I first went to it, because I feel like Alliance has well, as normal, Alliance has the prettier side of things, but we're also. It's a basin, as a very large number of World of Warcraft PvP zones are, because they got to make sure you can't run off the map. So they put mountains all around you, because Azeroth is nothing but mountains. That being said, though, you're in this basin, and the Alliance is up on one side, and the Horde is down on the other. And it's this real beautiful zone, but for me, I had such a wonderful feeling when I stepped out of, the little caged room that they trap you in for the first 2 minutes of the match. Because you are at the top, and as the Alliance, you just get to see this big, sprawling area in front of you. You can see everything, really. And I realize you can on the Horde as well, but coming out on top is much better than crawling out of a hole in the ground. Nothing against you, Evan, but you kind of cave people.
Sometimes I swim out of a whole cave lake.
It's true, you do. You're the Loch Ness monster. I feel like they actually took a little bit of time and designed this place a little bit more than some of the things we've talked about, because there's some things in this Battleground that I don't immediately go, oh, they just grabbed this, texture and they just threw this over here and blah, 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 blah. I mean, with like the logs and stuff that are falling down, it looks like they redesigned some of these, terrain pieces and kind of set it up in a way so that it felt, I've used this word before, a little bit more natural. The only thing that feels unnatural about this is the fact that we just have 2 random outposts that are stuck in the middle of a basin so that we can fight each other. And
maybe there was a bar fight and they built them to settle their dispute in a death match.
No, what is that story of the 2 hillbilly families that lived on the 2 hills and constantly fought?
The Hatfields and the McLeods, or the Hatfields and the McCoys.
Yep, Hatfields and McCoys.
That's what this family feud.
But I mean, when you go here, I love battlegrounds that are really open and outside because it gives you this, well, kind of more feeling of like you're on a battleground. Like, we talked about Silver Shard Mines before. I did not enjoy that because it kind of felt like it should have been a quest zone ish, kind of. Whereas this one, you're like out in the open besides, the two little forts and stuff like that. And it kind of, when you're charging across the battlefield and you can see the horde coming out from their little hovel down there, it just gives you a lot more epic feeling than you get with some things. Especially with things like, we reviewed, what is that other one? Altaric Valley? Arathi Basin. I think we've done both of those actually. Which one of the one is the King of the Hill one? I always forget. Is that Arathi Basin? That's Arathi Basin. With that one, you're so far away and you can't really see the other team very well. So you don't really get this feeling of like I'm rushing into battle. You're just like, well, I'm just rushing over to the lumber mill because I need to win King of the Hill. And where Twin Peaks is a capture the flag, I don't immediately, sure, that's my objective, but when I'm walking out, I just get this real epic feeling of we're charging down the hill, the horde is charging up the hill, and we're just going to crash in the middle, and it's going to be epic. And it normally is, especially because there's this river that goes through the middle of Twin Peaks, and there's a small bridge that goes across it, and it's a wide enough river that you can't leap over it on a mount. So if you want to maintain a decent speed, you run over the bridge. And so it's a perfect little choke point to encourage conflict. And I think it's wonderful because it just gives you this, even though your objective is the flags, you also get this wonderful feeling of the choke point at the bridge.
Right. I want to piggyback on that point. This was a Cataclysm level or era battleground. This is really kind of similar to the Capture Flag. They had the Warsong Gulch rule set. I think the same number of people too. I think they're learning from the mistakes there. In the Warsong Gulch, when you go off, you generally go out the front door, and one or two people go down the tunnel. And by the time you reach each other, you can just pass right past each other. I think there's too much field in between the two entrances. There's enough encouragement for that conflict like you're talking about. So that one bridge as a choke point is a really cool idea. So when you're talking about the epic kind of adventure of the initial releasing of the troops and they all run at each other, I think the effectiveness in this instance is a lot better than its predecessor.
And how would you follow that up, Florian?
I definitely have to agree that the initial run out is much nicer than any other battleground I've been in, and it's aesthetically very pleasing. In general, the whole place looks nice, though. It's well designed visually. I don't really have any problems with any of the textures. They all look all right. I mean, this was given to us in Cataclysm, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So for Cataclysm, it looks all right. No really bad textures or design popped out at me. I mean, it just seems like a pretty all right battleground aesthetically.
It's Monday. Nobody knows how to use words today.
Well, I should because I don't actually have to do anything on Monday.
That's fair. So what would you want to grade the ambience of the Twin Peaks, Florian?
I'd give it a B. It's very well put together, and it looks nice, and I don't really have any problems with it. It just doesn't go that extra mile to earn the A for me.
It's not on a grand enough scale?
Perhaps. One of the problems is that, like you said, it's a really small basin, and why is anybody fighting in a really small basin? The only thing you're going to win is control of a really small basin.
Like I said,
congratulations.
Now, the two factions at war here are two different dwarf clans. Is that what we were talking about?
No, it's the Wildhammer Dwarves and the... What kind of orcs are they? Dragonmaw orcs, I want to say.
Okay, so it is dwarf on orc, horde race on alliance race.
Yep.
I didn't think that really came across in the architecture of the places. I go up to the Wildhammer's throne room, flag room, or whatever, and I steal the flag or whatever, and it's got like the stone work, and it's pretty clean. It doesn't look like a base. The Arathi Basin is really heavy in saying this is the lumber mill. Look at all the milling going on. There's the mill right there. Here's the lumber. Here are the workers milling the lumber, kind of thing. the capture flag, even the Silverwing Sentinels versus the Warsong Clan, they looked like they really were trying to defend the places. They put up those old spike walls, you know. They have machines of destruction. They have the tanks out there in the field that are all dilapidated that they're using to log the forest. There's more of a story being told. I don't see the story here. I think it's really good textures, terrain, and that kind of thing. But I think most of the points in this play lie in the gameplay design more so than the aesthetics. So I'll do the aesthetics as a C+.
C+. I'm going to give it a flat B as well. I think that they made it small so that the action was more intense, and I think a lot of the points that I can give this are going to go to gameplay, and the ambience, while good, is, like Florian said, not anything that's like inspirational, nothing to write home about. They just did a good job on it, but it's very just there. I think the strongest point of this, and what we're going to get to right after this, is the gameplay. Ambience is going to be set at right around a B-. Evan, gameplay, please.
So we went over one of the first big gameplay points of this, which is the choke point bottleneck in the very front. This is something that you see within 30 seconds of starting the match. The other gameplay points I want to bring up in this place is the different return paths from the buildings to the outside. You have, I think each building has 4 entrances, 3 entrances, maybe 4 entrances. The upstairs and downstairs are linked with a ramp, like in Warsong Gulch. The upstairs and downstairs of the flag room are linked by a ramp. There is a more water features in this map than Warsong Gulch, and I'm really going to be comparing the two pretty heavily here. That gives, I think, some waterfaring classes an advantage. It was really fun being a druid flag carrier in this map, for instance. And other classes that can walk on water, of course. Like you said, the river in the middle of the map is too wide to jump over without getting, without splashing, and unless you have a water walking path, ice, that kind of thing. And that's really the big gameplay things here. What do you want in a good capture the flag map? I'm thinking multiple avenues to take the path so that I can keep on kiting people around, especially a variation of terrain. You have bridges, you have drop-offs into the river, the moats around the different buildings. Does only the Horde side have a moat? Does the Alliance side have a moat up there, or is it all just stone?
It's just stone. They have they have a lot. What is it? They have like a higher, like a raised exit that like goes off over a cliff that makes it difficult. Like it's a lot easier to run out of than it is into.
Right, exactly, and that's like the kind of the underwater moat exit from the Horde flag room. It's easier to leave by that than to enter by that. It just depends. I'm not entirely sure if there are any terrain advantages to one race or the other. You of course mentioned having the high ground on the Alliance side, but I think they did really careful engineering such that you weren't able to turtle more easily on one than the other. For instance, there's a lot of the same kind of mirror arrangement of the actual architecture of the buildings themselves. So I'm going to give Blizzard a pretty good thumbs up on balancing this map. Do we have any balance conflicts that people talk about that I'm not aware of?
Not that I can think of. Not that come to mind immediately right off the top of my head. I've never felt like, in terms of gameplay and balance and like one side having an advantage over the other, I have not felt that way in this battleground. I do think, like, if I was to try to pick one, I mean, technically the water makes it harder to run away from the Horde outpost, but that's still stretching it. What about you, Florian? Can you think of anything that's really like an outcry, a blatant offense to balance that exists in this?
The closest thing I could think of would be maybe the Alliance base's higher elevation. I see where if you were to take advantage of, for example, Goblin Glider or something like that, you could cover a lot of ground very quickly, immediately after spawning using that. But aside from that, it seems like it's very well balanced. I don't really see any problems with it balance-wise.
So what are we grading this then, guys? What are we grading it? Florian, let's wait, no, I got you first last time. Evan, let's have you go first.
For the lore?
No, no, no. For the gameplay grade.
Oh, geez. Oh, sorry. Pull the rug out from under me there. My gameplay grade for this place is going to be a B plus or an A. Don't know, B plus or an A. I think this is an improvement on Warzone Gulch. I like the capture the flag map style a whole lot.
Evan?
Yeah,
Oh,
not
there you
the
are.
best. Yeah, not completely flawless. I'm just imagining in my head all my experience of the thing. I'm gonna give it an A, flat A. Is that cool with you guys?
Yeah, that's great. Florin, what about you?
Um, I'll give it an A as well. This is actually a really fun PvP map. I've had more fun with this one than any of the maps we've gone over up to this point. And it's like Evan said, it's really it kind of reminds me of, like, I think of it as sort of Warsong Gulch plus. It's like they made Warsong Gulch and they're like, let's make another Warsong Gulch, but let's do it better. And that's what this is. This is Warsong Gulch, but everything is better. It's not perfect, but it's very good.
And so that puts your grade at A.
At an A.
And I'm sitting the same way. It just feels good, and I think that's something that's really important in Battlegrounds, is that they feel good. I mean, obviously sometimes you just get completely crushed, and that doesn't feel good. But in terms of gameplay, it doesn't feel like this map is hindering you in such a way that the game is out of your control, out of your hands, compared to like my complaint with Silver Shard Mines, and
Exactly.
whereas an Alliance play. What?
Yeah, when you think there are points in the game where you're like, wow, this map's kind of me. Oh, wow. Everybody's been there, You can understand that. Everybody's been there. Yeah, so you're getting camped out in front of Silver Shard Mines and that kind of thing is happening. You're like, why is this happening? This is a map thing. You don't get any of that with this. Warsong Gulch, I feel like the turtles get a little intense in Warsong Gulch. I feel like it takes too long to get up to the roof, and then it's way too easy to escape from the roof to the front door.
Well, and Warsong Gulch is bigger than this.
Was that right?
Yeah, they made Twin Peaks a lot smaller, which makes it so much harder to turtle because you're not really ever that far away from anything in Twin Peaks. So, I mean, if someone's turtling in their base, it's not that hard to, like, even bring your flag carrier with you to go that, 50 feet to get close enough to their flag carrier to swarm him down. Whereas in Warsong Gulch,
as well.
It feels like it takes forever to get across the map because it's a really big battleground, really, for 10v10 capture the flag. Anyway, story time, Florian.
Well, here's the thing about the story. There's not really much there, as usual, with the PvP battlegrounds.
Do we know what they're fighting over?
Yes. They would like to capture the Twin Peaks area because it is a strategically advantageous area from which to strike at the Twilight Hammer. And the Dragon Maw orcs and the Wildhammer dwarves both want to control this so that they can strike at the Twilight's Hammer.
So we are fighting each other for an advantageous position to fight something else.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They want it because it gives them an advantageous position to fight somebody who is their mutual enemy. So I'm not really sure why they're fighting over it instead of just going and destroying the Twilight's Hammer. But, whatever they want to do with their lives.
I in regards to my first statement in game ambience, I kind of feel like Alliance already has the better position. From actual literal real world tactical standpoint, Alliance is totally in the bag.
Yeah, they've got the high ground, so it's definitely better for them right now. But yeah, and that's pretty much, as far as I can tell, the entirety of the area's lore. It's just some dwarves, some orcs fighting over it. That's it.
Story team really put some time into this one, huh?
Oh yeah, they've outdone themselves.
So it's basically, it follows the same kind of paradigm as been done in the past, right? You take a zone like Arathi Basin was the Arathi Highlands. You put two factions kind of diametrically opposed, one for the Horde, one for the Alliance, and then you have people come and fight in what's essentially kind of more of a mini game. It doesn't follow really with the quest objectives in the zone or the storyline in the zone. So I think this is just saying, hey, let's do a revamp of Warsong Gulch. Can you guys think of an example of a battleground that really had a lot to do with the plot of the gameplay large, the raid scene large, of the storyline of the expansion at large?
No,
I
no,
don't
not
think
right
there is
offhand.
one. I think they're just kind of they just kind of make battlegrounds
I think this is
as
just the
there's
Horde and Alliance like to fight. I think it's just trying to say we are opposing factions on the same planet, and we will have to fight over stuff. And
Everything.
yeah, I mean, when you're in Ashen Vale, which is a contested zone, and you come across somebody of the opposing faction and you want to kill them, and they're flagged for PvP or whatever, you're not killing them because they drop loot. You're not killing them because your faction wants control of the area, of Ashen Vale. It doesn't affect that at all. You're just killing it because you're a jerk, uh, or because PvP is fun and it's challenging, and that's why you're on a PvP server, for instance. So giving a kind of a plot to like this organized player versus player interaction, I think gives more life to the Alliance versus Horde conflict, and I think that's why they've done this mercenary feature at at length after a long time of trying to maintain the purity of Alliance versus Horde, no kind of exceptions. This is a theme. Alliance versus Horde could be the subtitle to the entire Warcraft franchise, and they
Well, I
don't want
mean,
to
that
really
was
give that up.
the second game, Orcs versus Humans.
Right, exactly. And I think that's something I think the Alliance and Horde teaming up is something that happens when they really meet a bad guy, not something that they really ought to do logically, even if they have, like, when you think about it, they really ought to be on the same side logically, given all the threats that are outside of them. But I think this constant, roughhousing is just an illustration that these factions really don't get along with each other. It's just kind of hopeless. We're always going to be fighting. It's just how we are, do battlegrounds help kind of illustrate that Alliance and Horde will always be opposed?
Yeah, I guess so. You got to put a depressing tone on everything. Um, but no, I think it's true. I mean, just the social structures of the two factions are just too different for them to really intertwine much. And I mean, we've talked before about, like how the leaders of the factions will talk and stuff like that, but I think they do that only out of necessity, and the hatred runs deeper than is probably illustrated very well in the game. But that is not what we're here to talk about, so I need lore grades. Take your pick. Flip a coin.
Yeah, lore. So they want. I mean, what are they doing here? It's just, what are my expectations for the lore of a battleground? Pretty low. What have they done? They've successfully captured the two factions that are opposed in this one conflict, in this one zone. Um, I'm gonna say I'm gonna give them a C because they don't even tell me why it's advantageous. It's not self-explanatory. It's not like resources. I think going after lumber in Ashen Vale was a little bit easier to buy than this.
I'd also like to point out that they say this is an advantageous position to strike from. Twin Peaks is a basin and not a very big one. You aren't camping a very large army here, and you aren't going to be able to move things in and out of the mountains very well. I don't care how well equipped you are. So I think that's baloney, and I'm giving this a D minus, because the reason they're fighting is just dumb, and trying to call this an advantageous strike point is dumb, and Florian, your turn.
I'm going to agree with your assessment, although I'm going to give it a little easier and just go with a D. Partly because of the things you said, and partly because the whole thing doesn't make sense. The Dragonmaw clan and the Wildhammers both want to get rid of the Twilight Hammer, and they both want this area to get rid of the Twilight Hammer. I don't see how them fighting each other over it is a necessary intermediate step. That doesn't make sense. You don't get into a fist fight with someone else who wants to go beat up the same guy that you do.
Yeah, isn't the enemy of my enemy supposed to be my friend?
Apparently not in the world of Warcraft.
Well, that's depressing.
I'm gonna fall in line behind Florian's opinion. He's the authority on fist fighting, so we'll just consider that matter settled.
Very well, then. Then that means that it is time for me to play this sound. That concludes our show, everybody. Again, this has been a new format for us to record and everything like that, and hopefully I don't botch it in post-production. But if this sounded better to you, clearer to you, if you heard things or etc., if you noticed a change in the quality of our show, please let me know so that I know that I don't need self-satisfaction of, hey, you did a good job. I just need to know that it worked, because that's something that we have been told a couple times, hey, see what you can do about improving the quality, not, just of like our microphones, but of the bumpers and all of that. And I hope that the work that I've done through Adobe Audition has made a difference. If not, then I need to try something different. So please let me know if it did not make a difference, because I need a difference to be made. Please send all of your questions, suggestions, and feedbacks to us at our email at thecastbar@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at Castbar Podcast. Call and leave us a voicemail even. We'll play it on the show, 508-738-2278. Also, you can leave it to us on our website at www.thecastbar.com. You can find all of our old shows on iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube, as well as our website. I do have to give some credit out, and that is to the gentleman that made our bumpers. His name is Kevin McLeod, and you can find all of his work at incomtech.com. If you would like to get a hold of me, you can find me on pretty much all forms of social media under the handle Schwan Michael. That is SC as in Charlie, HAWA. Whoa, no, I can't spell my own name. SEHWAHNMICHAEL. And
S as in snake. It's H as in hoopla. Sorry. You'll bog down, man.
Evan, what about you? Where are people able to find you at?
If you want to hit me up, you can send me an email at thecastbar@gmail.com. You can hit me up on Twitter at EDCWow if you are waiting for the results of the character pose screenshot contest. Then send me a email bugging me about it. For now, it looks like those portraits will be done as like a Christmas present for our listeners. But sooner, the more you guys harass me about it. But yeah, they're looking good. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody who has submitted their character pose. And it's really been fun getting started on all these. So I'm looking forward to the final product there. Thank you guys.
Florian, how about yourself?
If you want to contact me, you can contact me at the Castbar's email, and I encourage you all to send us many more emails. The reader mail is really important, and it gives us a lot of thought-provoking discussions. At least it did today, and I'd like to see more of that in the future.
All right, let's head out of here.